Hey, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co, and this is To Back or Not to Back. We're going to be diving into a bunch of campaigns today. There's a bunch of board game adjacent, there's a bunch of campaigns not funding, and then of course there's the campaigns funding that we're going to dive into. But before we start off with that, just a quick reminder that just last past week we went ahead and opened up sales for the Level Up Retreat. The Level Up Retreat is a convention that I'll be hosting July 14th through 16th. It's going to be in Connecticut at the Stamford Hotel. It's down here somewhere. The Hilton Stamford Hotel in Connecticut, USA. We just opened up ticket sales. I'll have a link to it down below, but go ahead and check this out. It's going to be July 14th to 16th, a bunch of special guests, 3 days of gaming, hot games room, panels, events, all those fun things. I'll be there. We're going to have Foster the Meeple, Quackalope, Professor Meg, Board Game Garden, Dragon's Tomb, a whole bunch of people, those who I'm remembering, those who I'm forgetting, as well as if you are a VIP guest, which means if you buy the VIP bag, you don't have to be a VIP guest, but if you buy the VIP upgrade or whatnot, there's includes access to the snack room as well as the swag bag, when the swag bag includes a bunch of things, but part of that includes a copy of 20 Strong from Chip Theory Games. So lots of fun things. We'll have more information over the next several weeks as we continue to update the site and tell you what's going on, but just a heads up, if you want to go ahead and jump in on that, I'll have a link to that down below, and it'd be great to see you there. So that's going to be today's update, and in general, expect these updates around the Level Up Retreat to be here and there on other videos over the next several months as we, well, go closer and closer to the event. First time hosting a convention, so very exciting stuff. But with that, let's go ahead and move into the Cult of the New. Cult of the Now, which is Horseless Carriage. The Horseless Carriage over on Miniature Market, the Cult of the Now, is a reminder that crowdfunding is a lovely thing, and crowdfunding is a lot of fun, but also has risks and delays and games that you don't yet know if they're good or not. And if you want, Horseless Carriage is certainly not cheap, but it is available for $110 from Miniature Market. This was briefly out of print already, and it will be out of print again. In general, Splotter games very quickly go out of print, and in general, they don't look like they deserve the price tag that they have, but they are incredibly well designed games that have a lot of love and passion for people who enjoy them. I have not yet played Horseless Carriage, but all the Splotter games I have played have been absolutely amazing, and so this is one that I have to get around to at some point, but that will be for another day. For right now, it's Horseless Carriage over at Miniature Market for Cult of the Now. And with that, let's go ahead and start off the board game adjacent category. There's a bunch over here, starting off with the non-official Frosthaven and Gloomhaven compatible playmats. This is the second printing from Crafting Kingdoms. This time they're bringing you the Frosthaven side of the playmats. They already designed these for Gloomhaven. They're coming back with the Frosthaven and or Gloomhaven double-sided ones. 202 backers so far, $22,000 raised. This is basically playmats for Frosthaven. So if you want a organized play area, there's a bunch of configurations. You can see over here, like just one of the, I think there's like 4 or 5 different options on the way these configure, and they are double-sided. You could get single-sided one and save a little bit of money, but honestly, for the few extra dollars, I'd recommend getting double-sided because you have that double functionality, and hey, you can even be a crazy person and use the winter side in Gloomhaven or the Gloomhaven side in Frosthaven if you really just want to defy all rules and sense of law in general. But from Crafting Kingdoms, these are just nice playmats. You can check out later this week. I'll have on my channel, actually, in my board game upgrades and deluxifications video, I'll have a video showcasing some of these mats in case you want to check them out over there. From there, we have a Maladum Dungeons of Enveron, and this sounds like a bit of a controversial one. Should this be in the board game category or should this be in the board game adjacent category? And I'm putting in the board game adjacent category. And the reason for that is because as someone who is very, very passionate about board games, I am not in the slightest bit interested in getting this. Like, not even remotely interested in getting this, which for me makes me like, I went back and forth. This was originally in the board game category. I moved it over here. Does it make a difference? No, but I'm addressing it because some people will be like, why'd you do that, Alex? Why'd you do that? And the answer is because this is a terrain system and an RPG kind of combined together. It doesn't seem like a classic board game. Like, I looked at it briefly and then I stopped looking into it. This is coming to you from Battle Systems Ltd. This is going to be the same people who brought you Core Space, which had a similar issue, although Core Space had an interesting aspect that Core Space was a miniatures game, but it also had a rule set where you don't have to use like rulers and whatnot, turning it into a bit more of a board game with miniatures. Those distinctions are minor, but they do exist. And this one seems to be straight up, RPG slash terrain slash whatever, and far less so in the board game category. Again, I briefly looked through it, and then just decided I just don't care enough personally. But yeah, I mean, if you want terrain, if you want RPG things, if you want terrain that can be used with your D&D campaign, or if you want a full system that is all-inclusive, that's what you have over here. You can go ahead and pick and choose your poison, as it were. Pledges from as low as $79, well, as low as is relative. Pledges from as low as $97, 79 pounds, all the way up to, we have $175 for the combined pledge over there, 175 pounds, $214. This is bringing you, like I said already, a terrain system, so everything's pre-colored, not really painted, but pre-colored. colored, and then use that as you will. Make things, put them together, do all that stuff. Things slot nicely. You can check out the video. Video showcases it nicely. I do think they did themselves a minor disservice by having this as the visual thing for their Kickstarter. I think they should have had the box here. This just looks a little messier and doesn't pull people in quite as much unless you're already following, already interested, or I should rephrase that, didn't pull me in quite as much, but we'll see. But either way, that's Maladum Dungeons of Enveron. I'm not treating this as a board game. I'm not giving it the full board game, like, you know, coverage and all that stuff. It looks like a terrain and miniature stuff, similar to if Arkan? I think Arkan Games, Arkan Studio, whatever. If Arkan had put out, you know, their terrain system, that's the same idea over there. But that's what we have over here. Dungeons of Maladum, Dungeons of Enveron. And over there we have on GameFound, we have Talislanta, the epic tabletop role-playing game, final edition. I don't know about the whole history of Talislanta. I know it's been around for a back, and it's back after 35 years, and there are still no elves or orcs or typical classes, although there are people with pointy ears, so the distinction of no elves, I think, is a bit of a semantic one at best. But $107,000 raised, 589 backers. This is Talislanta at its finest, coming to you from Everything Epic Games and bringing you a whole host of history behind it, new books and whatnot. We have the core books, we have the creatures, the classes. There's 101 subclasses or something like that, maybe 110 subclasses, a lot of subclasses and things. And then there's this miniature, but not really this miniature. It's an STL, so just in case you're backing this for the first 48 hours, we might even be past the first 48 hours. I'm not even sure, honestly. I think we are. But either way, you're getting the STL, not the full miniature, which might be great. Just understand, you're not getting the full miniature there. But then past that, very limited print runs. We got epic exclusives, worked on for over 2 years. Most of all, they cannot make it without their support, although they are funded by now, so you should be able to jump into it now. And again, the core sets, tons of art, or tons of role building, 100 class, subclass, and race combos that we call archetypes, making character creation fast and easy. You'll also find over 150 monsters and NPCs in the bestiary. You can check it out. There's a lot of content here, lots of stuff. Again, not an RPG person here, so not heavily diving into it. I will say I clicked around a bit of the archetypes and lots of fun little art. What do they actually do? No idea, because I don't play the RPG. But that's Talislanta over on GameFound if you want to check that out. A whole host of, well, content and pledges and options and too many things to go over for this. From there, we move into another RPG over on GameFound. This one actually semi-intrigues me. The Legacy of Cthulhu from Mind's Vision. 196 backers, $12,000 raised. The Legacy of Cthulhu is a solo RPG that you don't have to play solo. You could play with a group, but you also could play through it solo, giving you these like crafted scenarios or whatnot, or encounters you have to go through as you slowly wander around the map. This is built to be something you can engage with the individual scenarios on your own. That intrigues me because I still want to like RPGs. I want to try RPGs. I want to give them a shot and feel if they're for me or not. But ultimately, with the current systems in play, I haven't really done it yet. And a solo RPG intrigues me a bit. You know, the idea of being presented with scenarios and making choices, that kind of puzzle might be an adjacent kind of situation that might bridge me a bit closer to it and actually pull me in. Similar to the whole way that I actually want Arena of the Contest as an RPG to kind of pull me in there, because that pulls me in almost just by the theme itself. I want those bridging points that give me a reason to move into this world. I'm not backing this for the record, but I am tempted to back this one. But that's what we have over here. We have the Legacy of Cthulhu, semi-solo RPG. You could play it multiplayer or not over on GameFound. We're not done with the board game adjacent yet. Yes, we are. I lied. We're done with the board game adjacent. We are on to the not funding category, of which there are a lot in the not funding category. We have the lore board game, a mechanic-heavy archetypal fantasy adventure where your lore unfolds around you. 317 backers, $21,000 raised of a $50,000 goal. That does mean this one is unlikely to hit its funding total by the time the campaign ends. This one, they had a bunch of, taking actions, moving around the board, dealing with the various cards and situations. Again, I didn't heavily go into it. Non-funding games I don't heavily dive into, but I think the price point is fairly expensive for, it's not terribly expensive. Where is it? Where is it over here? $59 jumping into the game, and I think that's just a slightly higher price point comparable to what it seems like you're getting, that sense of how much of a game you're getting for $59, I think is a little tougher. And it also seems to be leaning a bit more into story stuff, which I do find with board games. I find RPGs do great and board games do great. Board games that kind of require a bit of RPG roleplay in them, I have found that they have struggled in the past, and I'm seeing that here as well with lore. So at this point, I don't think we'll be funding. I wish them luck, but we shall see. Moving on to Ynaros Fallin, $12,000 raised out of a $21,000 goal, or $13,000. Again, based on where it is in the campaign, I think it's the same problem. 208 backers, 11 days to go. I think it's just not far enough ahead for it to reliably fund right now. This is from Peak Week Dreams editions. I had a chance to play the game. I enjoyed it, not without critiques, but I enjoyed the game overall, and it's sad to see it not doing that well, so it is what it is over here. But either way, this is a game of strategic game of exploration and area control. It's a game that gives you multiple ways to play the game, multiple ways to level up, and I actually found the second level with the terrain aspect very compelling in terms of the puzzle it created, although I'm jumping ahead of myself. I'm treating this if you watched my review. This is a game of combat, sort of, more area control as you try to gather lands and ultimately score points through a variety of ways, but a big part of that is going to be gathering lands. But you're going to be moving around the board, taking actions, cashing in crystals, and occasionally dabbling in combat, while really trying to build out your tableau and get the lands and abilities you can, both activating the red lands on the board that are always in play, those little over here in the center of the board, and then the other lands that you're trying to slowly gather into your tableau. The game escalates across 3 series of rules additions, but then also the expansion adds further rules additions, each of them giving you new ways to approach the game engine, and some of them I found more, some of those changes or modules or however you want to call them, I found more compelling than others, but overall I found the system to be pretty enjoyable. For €36 we have the base game, for €49 we have the base game deluxe, for €54 we have the Guardian, which is the base game and expansion, but basic, and then for €68 we have the Shaman Pledge, the base and expansion and deluxe over here. So basically pledges ranging from like $35 all the way up to $74, $39 all the way up to $74, depending on whether you want base and expansion, retail and deluxe as far as the game goes. Again, not currently funding and doesn't look like it will fund, just based on the current trajectory, unfortunately. From there we have 5 games from legendary designers Phil Walker Harding, Mike Fitzgerald, Alf Siegert, and Sid Saxon. This is basically a collection of games from Eagle Griffin Games over on GameFound, 150 backers, $10,000 raised. This one likely will fund based on where it's at. Again, usually that kind of point you want to look at is the longer the campaign has up and the further away it is from that halfway point, the bigger chance it's going to have of struggling. So when you have 2 campaigns, Lore and Ynaros Fallin, that have been up for several days and haven't even hit the halfway point, that's where you're likely to be struggling a bit more, versus something like this where it's already crossed the halfway point based on where it is. There's a decent chance that it will fund, but we'll see how it goes. But either way, these are 5 games from Eagle Griffin Games, 5 smaller games. We have Tanis from Phil Walker Harding. We have where's that other one? We have Tanis. We have a Birthdays, whatever it's called, a Birthday something. Where is it called? I can't find the name for this one. But a Bard's Day Night, that's what it is, a Bard's Day Night, a game which you're going to be basically have food thrown at you as you have to deal with it as the bards. Tanis is a game of grabbing various tiles, almost Polyomino based, and then laying them in sequence from this box. Crunch Time, I don't actually remember how to play that, but some designer of basketball highlights. And then lastly we have 2 collection boxes over here, bringing some of their older games back in print. You can get any combination therein of these various things you want. You can look into each individual one a bit further as far as seeing the actual gameplay, but that's basically the games over here. I'm not going to go into each of these because there's 5 different things to go through. We have Tanis for $29, we have Basketball Highlights for $20, a Bard's Day for $22, the collections for $29 each, and then you can go all the way up to, you know, various combinations, or the all-in of everything for $119, or the full Griffin bookshelf series. That can give you absolutely everything in the bookshelf series for 1 to 29 for $635, of which we have 2 people who are pledged at that level. Just bring us like 4 or 5 more and you'll already be funded on the campaign. That's basically what we have as far as this series of 5 games, and again, not funded yet, but likely will. Then we have Woodland Wizards, still in the not funding category, 510 backers, $8,758 raised so far. Woodland Wizards is a game that is basically looks like a lighter card play based game that's going to play across 4 rounds as you gather cards, lay them in front of you, and then boost them and use their abilities and slowly add them to your tableau. The actual gameplay, I don't get a strong sense of what it's like, and again, not funding yet, so I look into it a bit less. But past that, this is from Alexander Omer, who brought you Pagan Fate of Roanoke, a game that I really enjoyed the original game when I was on crowdfunding, and have read the rules this past week to dive into it, hoping to dive into it this week. Fingers crossed, we'll see if I do. But that's Pagan Fate of Roanoke from the same designers or same people, same company. And this is going to be Woodland Wizards, which again, not yet funding. And this one does look like it probably, what's the numbers? Could go either way on this one. It's a little bit past the halfway mark with 26 days to go. My guess is this will fund, but it's certainly not a certainty as far as things go. Moving on, we have Gatefall Monsters. We are still in the not funding category, although this is the last one in the not funding category. We have Gatefall Monsters from Grim Rabbit Games, and Gatefall Monsters has $23,000 raised out of a $30,000 goal. Likely will fund. This will likely cross the finish line, and this is bringing you new factions to Gatefall. If you're not familiar with Gatefall, it's a game system from Jack Dyer from Grim Rabbit Games, a skirmish game system that that has various factions, and this is introducing the Monsters faction, which I believe is 3 new factions, and there's going to be a ton more content coming for this game. Tons more factions are planned for the system, but this is just, you know, the newest expansion, and I believe you can get the base game as well. You get the Monsters plus the core set for $98, you can get the Monsters alone for $39, or you can get the Fantasy vs. Wasteland for $59 over here. That's the original base game for the game. That's basically Gatefall. You can check into, you know, reviews or content on the actual game system to see how it stands out, but it's basically a skirmish games of 2 factions facing off against the river, and yeah, that's more expansion content for the game. Then we have over here, I'm not going to get the pronunciation right, we have Alpujarras and Fisheries of Gloucester. Is it Gloucester? Gloucester? I never know. Whenever you have a word that looks like that, whether it's I don't even want to say Worcester sauce, Gloucester. I think it's Gloucester, but I could be wrong. 363 backers, $20,000 raised. These are a set of games from the designer from Stephen, designer of Biblios, Herbaceous, and a bunch of other game systems, including, I think he did the there was one of the, oh my gosh, my something cabinet, knick-knack cabinet, the whatnot cabinet. I think he did the whatnot cabinet, didn't he? Maybe, possibly. I really enjoyed that one, which may or may not be his game. But either way, I know it's not from his publishing company, but it's from Pencil First Games, but I think it's his game. We're getting sidetracked here. Alpujarras over here is a game about trying to gather, I'm not going to remember the name of this, you're trying to gather things. What are they called again? They're called Norias, maybe it's Norias, I'm not certain. But you're basically going to be moving around in this board in a bit of a patchwork style system, which the person in last place goes first. So whoever's further behind goes first. You can try to choose how far ahead to jump to take your various actions. So a little bit of Namiji, a little bit of patchwork in that system as you move around the board, trying to collect again. This is where the Noria. You're trying to collect the Noria, maybe, I think, or the dirhams, maybe. I know that doing this thing's wrong. 1 second, we're going to the dirhams. The space are marked with various amounts of dirhams, I think. Either way, I don't know heavily about this game system. And then if you back it on Kickstarter, you're also getting the Farmers Feud promo pack. Past that, there's the Fisheries of Gloucester. I think it's Gloucester, I'm not sure. Anyways, you're going to be going ahead and using a time management system in this game, using actions to basically gather as much fish as possible. I think it's gathering as much fish as possible. Again, don't heavily know the system over here. And over here, you're going to get the Fisherman's Feud as well if you back it on Kickstarter as an extra. And then additionally, you can get these various add-ons for only $10 each. I think it's $10 each. You can get the Alpujarras Express and Fisheries of Gloucester Express. These will not cost additional shipping because they will come in your base box, but you have to get the associated base box or you cannot get those. That's going to be the pledge levels over here. So $10 for the Fisheries, $35 for Alpujarras, $55 for Alpujarras and Fisheries. The full bundle of everything over here is $80, and then the full big bundle with a bunch of other games is going to be $150 because you also have access to a bunch of Dr. Finn's other games and game systems, including his BYOP, Bring Your Own Pencil, series of games over on the crowdfunding campaign. As far as should you back or should you not, in general, Dr. Finn's games have a wide, lighter gateway appeal. I think his most successful game generally is considered to be Biblios, but all his game systems have a degree of, like, you know, a light little puzzly system that you have to try to figure out as far as what the filler game is and how to get as many points as possible in it. They tend to do decently well, but they also tend to be smaller box, cheaper games, which when it comes to crowdfunding Kickstarter usually means that they don't hold their value well as far as the aftermarket once you factor in shipping, once you factor in all that. These are games that usually, if you get them, you can enjoy them, and they might even be the best price point for you because they're not widely available, but usually these things won't hold their value very well. Moving on, we have From the Moon. $112,000, 1,500 backers. This coming from Le Botte de Jeu, and first things first, it's worth noting as always, they don't use a pledge manager. The relevance to you is that if you are waiting around for the inevitable late pledge, there's not going to be an inevitable late pledge. This is your chance to go ahead and get in on this now, or alternatively wait for the next opportunity, the next expansion, the next opportunity, retail, whatever it is, but there's not going to be a pledge manager option for this game. Past that, this is a worker placement game. It's going to be €65 for the game, plain and simple, no frills, no 14 different pledge options, €65, $71 for the game, and it's basically a worker crafting / worker placement game. In the game, you're going to have your little pod over here that you're sending out onto the moon, and the pod holds 3 workers, but you could upgrade your workers as well, so that they can be more efficient and take twice the actions while still only requiring the same amount of maintenance and just be, well, doing more stuff in the game. But you're sending the workers out to the moon to gather various resources, and you're using those resources to power the next batch of spaceships that are going to be sent off. You're using the moon as a launching point to send spaceships off into space to save humanity and all that stuff. That's the thematic aspect of the game. But the general idea is you're sending your rovers out into the board with your workers, you're upgrading your workers, trying to build the systems you need, trying to gather the resources you need to put them towards spaceships and or to below, and to put them towards stronger longer actions in the game. You can check out additional coverage from Manvers Meeple or a bunch of other channels if you want to see, like, you know, some more in-depth gameplay overview. But basically, worker placement, worker crafting, resource management, building spaceships, sending them off into space, and doing so efficiently as possible in this game. That's basically From the Moon. The game looks very cool, looks very compelling, and it's coming from the Buttajou, who did It's a Wonderful World, as well as... Did they do Clash of Rage? I want to say they did Clash of Rage. This is just a random look back. Give me a second here. I want to satisfy my own curiosity here. I'm 90% sure. Yep, they did Clash of Rage. Yeah, that's the thing. They've done Daimyo, they've done Clash of Rage, they've done It's a Wonderful World. It's a Wonderful World and they've done Malia. I forgot they did Malia. They've done a bunch of game systems, and they have had a wide degree of success across their gaming systems. Easily, It's a Wonderful World has been their most successful system across the board, and It's a Wonderful Kingdom to follow up. The other games have done pretty decently well, but, you know, to various degrees. Some games have held their value, some not so much. Clash of Rage and Daimyo Self are definitely below their value. From the Moon seems to be a bit closer to, you know, a standard Euro game, though still a premium one to a degree. So as far as the should you back or should you not, will it hold its value, I'm skeptical it will. I think the price point for the game does look pretty decent for what you get, but they've had a spotty track record in general, and you combine that with the, you know, general board game space having a harder time in general, you know, month after month and all that stuff. I think it's a game that, you know, if you get this game, you can get it at retail down the road with perhaps, you know, less luxification or whatnot. Or you can go ahead and get it on crowdfunding. I think if you do get it, though, it could hold its value. Again, this is definitely not a certain thing. They've had inconsistent games as far as how they've done, and that means it's harder to make a firm prediction by any shot. But I think the price point for the game you get, and the fact that it's doing well but not amazingly well, even given the audience, means I think this is one that may well, similar to Daimyo, be one that, you know, initially lands and people are excited, and then shortly after that fades a bit. I'm not confident. To keep that in mind, this is definitely a guessing game over here, but From the Moon, from the Buttajou, could go either way on this one. Then we have the Quest Kids Giant Adventure. 719 backers, $56,000 raised, 3 days to go. The Quest Kids Giant Adventure is basically the Quest Kids, but now it's giant. And you can either play it in a centralized play area, like the photo you're seeing over there, or alternatively, if you scroll down the page, maybe, or watch the video, I don't know, maybe you have to watch the video, but alternatively, you can play it down the hallways of your house, because I don't know about you, but the only space I have anywhere that looks like this flat and this free to play a game like this, there's no space. There's no space that I have in my house that looks that size that I could play this game on. In fact, I can't even play at the hallway size. My floor is littered with either board games or Lego, depending on which room you're in. Sometimes coffee. No, the coffee's not on the floor. Coffee's on the counter. On the floor, we got board games, Lego, and 4 children running around. And either way, this is a game system that's going to bring you the Quest Kids, and it's going to bring it to you in a larger box system. Tom Vassal actually has a video. You can check him out playing with his family and his kids, and it looks delightful as far as if you like the game system. This is a very charming way to introduce your kids to it. My kids cannot find out this exists. They cannot find out because they will want it, even though there's nowhere to actually play this game in my house. They will want it. They enjoy the Quest Kids, and the idea of running around in the actual tiles, they'd find this tremendously compelling, which is why nobody tell them this game exists. Just don't. Save me. I'm not going to lie to them. If they ask me about it, I'll tell them about it, but like, I don't have to inform them. I just don't have to. Also, kids, if you're watching this video in the future, I'm sorry. I apologize. But anyways, that's going to be the Quest Kids Giant Adventure. It's going to be coming to you for $68 for the game, and I believe it's all-inclusive. I don't think it's an expansion. I'm pretty sure it includes everything you need to play the game in its giant form. That's going to be $68, plus, of course, shipping and handling. As far as should you back or should you not, will hold its value. Charming game. If you like the Quest Kids, definitely a good reason to jump in on this. If you don't like the Quest Kids, it's a good opportunity to try something that is definitely very unique in terms of what it's bringing to your... I can't even say table, to your floor, bringing to your floor as far as the game goes. But as far as will it hold its value, I'm skeptical it will. The previous Quest Kids generally haven't, and I don't imagine this would either. I think this is charming, I think it's very cool, I think it's very different, I think it's very cool, and I overall like the Quest Kids. Let me rephrase that. I don't like the Quest Kids, my kids like the Quest Kids, and I like doing things with my kids that they enjoy, and so that's the Quest Kids Giant Adventure. Moving on, we have Purim the board game. 163 backers, $9,146 raised. This is a game about the Jewish people and Purim, saved in ancient Persia, and now spread the news. Now, I haven't done a heavy deep dive into the mechanics in this one. I will say this seems to be a very light dashing of the actual theme of Purim as far as what's going on in the so this is let's take a step back. Obviously, if you've been watching my show long enough, you know that I'm a religious Jew, and that does mean that this is a holiday that I'm more familiar with, so to speak. But I will say that while I don't think they're getting anything necessarily wrong, the focus of the game versus the tie into the theme seems not connected. Now, I'm not, just to be very clear, I'm not offended, I don't care, all that. It just seems like the actual story of Purim barely seems to really be present in the core mechanics of the game. There seems to be a cue pusher, but spreading the news as opposed to the actual things that happened. More of a general note as opposed to anything else. not actually a problem by any means. And this is coming to you from Funhill Games. Funhill Games have traditionally done a bunch of biblically themed games. They've done Wisdom of Solomon, they've done Kings of Israel, neither of which I've played, but I've always seen and been semi-intrigued by, and it does seem like this is their last game. They said that after this game, they're shutting down. This is the last it's over. After this, whatever they have and whatever stock you want to get, and then they're closing down as a company, which is a interesting way to run a quick Kickstarter campaign. It's a fascinating way to run it. But either way, this is Purim, again, but spreading the news. Again, I'm lightly diving into the mechanics here, but a lot of it is around pushing cubes around the board as far as the good news or the bad news, whether you're sending out, Haman's news or, the Jewish people's news and all that in the game, with a few other mechanics baked into the game system. That's Purim. Pledge levels over here are going to be $35 for the Purim base game, and then $70 if you want the Wisdom of Solomon game as well. As far as should you back it, should you not, will it hold its value? Probably not. The fact that you have 163 backers over here already tells you how much demand there is for the game, and I assume that will carry over to the aftermarket as well. At $35 for the game, it is a reasonable price point for what you're getting. But even then, once you factor in shipping and everything, I'm skeptical you'll see that money back on this game. I just think there won't be a ton of demand for it. On the other hand, this is also a game that is literally being put out as, hey, after this game is done, the company's gone and it's never coming back, and so there is that aspect. So it might be one of those things that you try to hunt down because some person down the road wants to collect that board game they made about the story of Purim, and they're willing to hunt down one of the 163 copies out there in existence, which could mean that at some point it might be more expensive, but it's not one that traditionally will easily hold its value. Moving on, we go on to the hunt on GameFound. $27,000 raised, 27,000 euro raised, 1,100 backers. This is coming to you from Salt and Pepper Games. This is the second game from Salt and Pepper Games. They previously did Resist, and now they're doing the Hunt. The Hunt is coming to you from Matthias Kramer and one other person, an Engin Kunter, I believe. That's going to be the Matthias Kramer is the creator of Watergate, and if you go through the testimonials on this game, it does seem like it's being compared to Watergate. This is an asymmetric two-player head-to-head game that gives you all the strategy of Watergate and then some, supposedly, as far as the game systems go, which already has me incredibly compelled. The gameplay doesn't look like anything to me, but then again, the gameplay of Watergate doesn't do anything for me either, just by sheer looking at it, but the testimonials have me very compelled, and in particular, if you're trying to hunt down a copy of Resist, their last game, the Resist is going for like twice what people paid for it on the secondhand market right now. It's out of print, it's hard to get your hands on, and people do seem to like that game, which brings us to the whole should you back and all that stuff, which is over here on this game, it is €23 for the game, plus of course shipping, but if it's anything like what Resist did, especially a game that's like, I mean, if you look at games like Blitzkrieg or Watergate, different game systems that were incredibly popular when they landed, my guess is that down the road, this may or may not hold the value, but I'm pretty sure that this is one that will go out of print almost immediately, or temporarily between print runs almost immediately, and for a while this is one that will likely be more expensive after the crowdfunding campaign. So if you like those style of games, I'd say go for this one, but alternatively, if you're unsure, you can probably wait. Fast forward 3-4 years from now, this will probably be available at retail because it'll be a well-loved game, possibly. I don't know. I'm just assuming if it's like Watergate, there's a decent chance that it will have that general appeal to it. That's going to be The Hunt from Salt and Pepper Games, from Matthias Kramer and something Kuntner. Sorry about that. I apologize for the name. It is Engin Kunter. That's going to be over on GameFound. Moving on, we have Townsfolk Tussle, Foul Neighbors, and Odd Jobs. The big one of today, we have 5,229 backers, $675,000 raised. I'm pretty sure that's the most funded from what we have. Yeah, I think it's the most funded. We have one more decently sized one over on BackKit, but $675,000 raised, 5,237 backers, Townsfolk Tussle, Foul Neighbors, and Odd Jobs. Not what do I call it? Nosy Neighbors? I called it something else. I originally had a different name to the expansion, so my review had something else in the title. But either way, Foul Neighbors and Odd Jobs, 2 expansions to Townsfolk Tussle, as well as, of course, they have an upgrade kit, and as well as that, they also have a revised box as well for second edition, people buying a second time. I think they're looking into ways for people to get the box if they want to buy it. I don't know exactly. But as far as the expansions, we have Odd Jobs and Foul Neighbors. Foul Neighbors is going to introduce 2 new, whatever they're called, heroes. They're not called heroes. They're the townsfolk, whatever you call them. And then 8 ruffians, the various villains you're going to be facing off against. Meanwhile, Odd Jobs is introducing a new peddler deck, as well as a degree of unlockable content in the game. So Odd Jobs is going to give you roll cards, a new peddler deck that gear that when you buy the gear, it gives you the opportunity to earn rolls, and then it also has unlockable content that you're going to go through different ways of slowly unlocking and acquiring content, so that every time you dive into Townsfolk Tussle, there's some new gear and new things and new senses of progression going through the game systems. You can check out my coverage of it. You can check out a variety of content creators' coverage in it. There's a lot of coverage on this game, but there's two different conversations. There's Townsfolk Tussle, what is that? And then there's the expansion content and how that messes with the system, what it adds, what it changes, even the core gameplay changes it makes. So for example, now there's a mode where you face off against 3 bosses, which I'm pretty sure is the only way I will ever play this game again. I play this game as a 4-boss sequence, and I play this game as a 3-boss sequence, and 3 bosses is just where it's at. They have some small modifications. You don't just do 3 bosses. You get some additional gold, you skip the first round. There's some things. You can apply those, by the way, to your core game. You don't need to buy the expansion to do that. But either way, that's what we have over here as far as Townsfolk Tussle, the expansion Nosy Neighbors, and Odd Jobs. As far as pledge levels, we have $105 for the spectacular second edition of the game, which they're keeping that price point down, which good for them. They could easily charge more for this game. This is a game that was going for $300 on the secondhand market when it was hard to get your hands on it and you couldn't get it. $115 for only the new stuff for the game, and then $210 for the Peddler's Welcome Basket of all the things over there, and then $325, currently all gone, but you have no idea. There's 100 of these, which means someone might drop it, so keep an eye on these and see what happens, but currently all gone for the Dearly Departed Gravestone Bundle, which basically has your name on the inside of the box or on the gravestone. I think it's on the gravestone and on the rulebook, maybe the last page of the rulebook, something like that. But either way, those are the various pledge levels over here, and this is a game system that involves basically just having a bunch of various heroes taking down the ruffians, going through a sequence of 3 or 4 bosses as you level up, gather gear. It is a game system that definitely has enough strategy to be compelling, but very much is more about the charm and the world and all that and everything. And there's a ton of charm. There's tons of asymmetric bosses. Sometimes the plays are going to be obvious. Sometimes there's going to be tactical decisions you have to make. There's going to be different ways you build out your characters. I enjoy the system a lot, but I enjoy it with caveats. In terms of, like, to me, a lot of this is about the theme and the appeal of the overall things you're going through over anything else, and just the way you'll build out your characters. But I've had a lot of fun with this. I enjoyed revisiting it recently, going through a bunch of bosses in a row to dive into all the expansion content that I got my hands on, and that's Townsfolk Tussle. As far as should you back it, should you not, will it hold its value? Yes, just fine. This isn't a game that, again, will likely go out of print. You're going to have the crowdfunding campaign, then it will land, and people will want it. Same story as always when it comes to games like this. The first print run was heavily sought after, and people were very excited and wanted to get their hands on this game. That's going to be true here as well. People are going to want the game. People are going to want the new content. If you back this game, back with the confidence that if it's not a game for you, you can absolutely sell it and get your money back on this. Not even a question as far as I'm concerned. I could be wrong, but I don't think I'm wrong. Moving on, we have Sentinels of the Multiverse Disparation expansion from Greater Than Games. This seems to be the first new expansion. They're redoing the definitive edition of the game. They've had Rook City, they've had the base game, and now they have the Disparation expansion. Although Disparation expansion does seem to be an amalgamation or a combination of various things that already existed to some extent. I recognize some things, not everything, so some of it might be new, but it is the first expansion of its name or whatnot. We have 4,100 backers, $342,000 raised, and this is following the typical Sentinels of the Multiverse definitive edition re-releases that they've been doing, which in short is to say that they have a release. It's $50 for the game. You also get the foil cards for the game as well, and that's going to be true over here. But you also have access to getting all the original stuff. For $150 you can get everything over here, the original core game, the Rook City, and the expansion, $50 a piece, plus getting the foil cards for all of those. As far as should you back it, should you, well, let's take a step back. What is Sentinels of the Multiverse? Sentinels of the Multiverse is it's a cooperative system in which you're going to be taking on a bunch of heroes in the Sentinels of the Multiverse universe, and they all have pre-constructed decks as you take on any one of the various villains and try to face them off, dealing with the environment, the heroes and the villains that you want to choose over there. So it has elements of, Marvel Champions, but with pre-constructed decks. It has elements of the MDS, the modular deck system from the Sailor Brothers and Blacklist Games, although that's just, they had a modular deck system, which is effectively the same thing as Sentinels of the Multiverse has had since 2010 or 2011 when it first came out. This game has gone through a few versions and a lot of expansion content, and this definitive edition is something else. I actually have it. I have the base game definitive edition that I want to dive into and see if it's for me. I think I have 17 days to do so and see if I want to go ahead and back new content for the game system. But either way, that's what it is. You choose a bunch of heroes, choose a villain, choose an environment, face off against all of that, and then just try to figure out whether you can outpace the various villains. And it has a high degree of modulation as far as making it more or less difficult depending on who you're facing off against. And just, it's a very challenging, very rewarding experience that I enjoyed a lot as I played through this when I first got into gaming. As far as the game systems over here, as far as the should you back it, basically the base game itself manages to be sticking its price point fairly firmly. That $50 price point is holding on to just fine as far as retail editions go. But over here on the back kit game, you're going to be paying extra for the shipping, but you will be getting those foil cards. As far as should you back it, should you not, will it hold its value? If you don't care about the foil cards, save your money and just wait and get it at retail. There's no reason to go all in. Just get the base game, see if it's for you, and then you can buy the expansions one at a time, and you won't be really paying that much extra for anything. If you do care about the foil cards, then yes, the back kit campaign over here is the cheapest way to get your hands on them, because the foil cards on eBay, if you're trying to get the Sentinels Kickstarter edition on eBay, they do go for more than what people pay for them, so they do hold their value just fine right now. So if you're just in it for the gameplay, just get the expansions just get the game and or expansions at retail, and if you want the foil cards, then the back kit campaign is the way to go. Which means we have one more campaign. We have Point City plus Deep Dive from AEG. We have, or is it from AEG? From Flat Out Games. Flat Out Games, not AEG. They work with AEG. They distribute stuff from AEG, so I got confused for a second. It's all good. But either way, we have Point City and Deep Dive, 5,000 backers, $157,000 raised, 25 days to go on 2 lighter games that are coming from them, from the team behind Calico, Cascadia, Verdant, all those games. Point City, by the way, because, the team behind Point Salad, this is Point City and Deep Dive. 2 different games, small box games, $19 a piece, or $35 for both, $35 for both of them. Point City is basically a Splendor adjacent game of grabbing 2 cards in a pair. So you want to grab 2 cards that are next to each other, horizontally, vertically, whatnot, and it's either going to be 2 building cards, a building and a resource, or 2 resources. You're using the resources to go ahead and contribute to the buildings, but as you build buildings, you're going to have resources that are pre-generated to go towards the next cards, which effectively means you're building out a tableau not that dissimilar from Splendor. That said, there's a different system behind it. There's some other things in play. There's some various scoring bonus tiles you're going for. This game has enough overlap and similarity with Splendor that if you like Splendor, it's worth checking out, while being different enough that it does stand on its own at the same time. That is effectively Point City. I have coverage on that. You can check that out. So do a bunch of other content creators. And then we have Deep Dive, which is a bit of a push your luck system. In Deep Dive, you're going deep diving in order to go deeper and deeper into various points of the sea, trying to choose when to stop, how far to go, where are the predators, and then coming back up with what you need and what you get out of it. It's basically push your luck as far as the game goes. And the degree of set collection, the game ends when one of the depths of the ocean has been fully explored, and then Penguin Wall with the best set of food wins. So it's set collection and push your luck in the game of, well, deep diving. Those are the 2 game systems over here. As far as should you back it, should you not, will it hold its value? These are trickier to go through. These are very small box games. In general, Flat Out Games has done a phenomenal job of giving themselves, they have Fit to Print, they have Verdant, they have Cascadia and Calico. All those hit a certain price point with just enough extras, and overall they did just fine as being a good reason to get them on crowdfunding. If you didn't want them, you can go ahead and turn around and sell them, but they weren't amazing deals, but they weren't bad deals either. In general, the smaller the box goes, the harder it is to give a good reason, because shipping just starts cutting more and more into your margins. So I'm uncertain on these ones. I think if you wait and you're willing to get them at retail, you're probably fine getting them at retail, and you're probably better off that way if you're willing to wait. But there are small mini expansions you do get if you get them on crowdfunding. There's the Deep Dive. We have the deluxe wooden penguins over here. Nope. Where are they? We have the included with Point City. We have the 4 bonus civic tokens. And we have the 9 bonus wild food tokens. And these are the Kickstarter promos you'll get over here. So that's where you're going to be paying a little bit more to get these on crowdfunding, but you will be getting those extra promo stuff. So it kind of depends on if you care about those or not. I'm skeptical that it'll hold its value overall. It's a little hard with these smaller box games. You're talking about a matter of dollars here for these games. I wouldn't be confident either way. I think ultimately for you it comes down to whether you just want to get it the cheapest way possible and see more reviews and things come in, or whether you don't care because, hey, it's a few bucks, what's the big deal? Could go either way on that one, but that is Point City and Deep Dive. And with that, let's go and take a look at our picks of the week. Picks of the week, I generally only look at things that are already funding, which means we don't have a huge category. We have Gatefall, we have Alpujarras and Fisheries of Gloucester, we have From the Moon, Quest Kids, Purim, we have The Hunt over here, and then we have Townsfolk Tussle, and then Sentinels and Multiverse. And from these over here, for the value pick of the week is the one that is the most likely to hold its value as far as if you back it on crowdfunding, will it hold its value or not. That's an easy pick with Townsfolk Tussle. Townsfolk Tussle is easily the one on the table here that will most hold its value from all the games we've talked about. Also, it would be my pick of the week as well for my personal interest pick of the week, but usually I do try to split those up if possible. And to that end, I'm definitely very interested in Sentinels and Multiverse, but I really need to replay the base game to see if I'm really going to dive back into it or not. I'm also fairly interested in From the Moon, but it's not going to be my pick. Instead, The Hunt is going to be my pick of the week. I passed on Resist, and I feel like I regret passing on Resist now, because Resist is getting a lot of buzz, and it seems like the kind of game system I'd really enjoy, and I don't want to make that same mistake with The Hunt, especially as a 2-player head-to-head game that is highly asymmetric and highly rewarding. I think if it's anything like Watergate, I'm going to enjoy this one, and even though the visual appeal of the game doesn't do anything for me at all, I don't know. This is one I'm definitely very interested in. If I'm not choosing Townsfolk Tussle, I think I'm going to choose the Hunt. And with that, as far as campaigns coming up next week, there are a few things. I was just briefly touched upon a few. We have over on GameFound, we have Explored Fall of the Ancients, going to be launching in a few days over on GameFound, bringing you another campaign system to the Explore universe. And then additionally over on Kickstarter, we have Galactic Renaissance, the spiritual successor to Inish. Inish is a phenomenal game, one of my favorite games of all time. It's in my top 5 games of all time. Maybe it's number 6 even. I don't remember what it was. It's in my top 10 games of all time. Inish is fantastic, and Galactic Renaissance is the spiritual successor. I will have coverage for that game going up tomorrow, so you can check that out as well. And with that, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. Thanks so much for tuning in for this longer video, and as always, I hope you have a good one. When I was a kid growing up, my mother was always terrified of the dangers of dancing. She always warned me about what would happen if I started dancing and how much of a problem it was, and she made me swear up and down, left, right, and center to never, ever get involved in dancing. Which is something I managed to hold true to for years and years, until eventually in my college years, I briefly was obsessed with the hokey pokey. But fortunately, I turned myself around.